Welcome to Stories of the Lockdown, a podcast by India Spend and Nicor Associates. Here, we seek to shed light on women's narratives during COVID 19. The pandemic has disproportionately affected women, deepening pre existing gender divides and setting back gender equality. While each episode will have a different sub theme, the broader focus will remain on women and their lives under the lockdown. For today's episode, I, Chandni Ganesh, will be your host. I'm joined by Mrs. Chetna Sinha, the founder and chairperson of Mandeshi Foundation. Before we begin, could you please tell us a little bit about the organization as well as yourself and your role at Mandeshi?
Yes, thanks, Chandni. I'm very glad to be part of this podcast, and I'm delighted that Nikore Associates and have created this platform during pandemic to get the different narrative on women's experience, which is so important. Now, let me tell you about myself. I'm Chetna Sinha, founder of Mandeshi Mahila Sahakari Bank, Women's Cooperative Bank, and Mandeshi Foundation. I was born and brought up in Mumbai. I never thought that I will start a bank or a business school for rural women, all these activities. Grew up in a regular middle class. When I was doing my undergraduate program at the university, I met a Gandhian leader, Jai Prakash Narayan, who was moving from student universities, from colleges to appeal students that young people should work in the villages of India. This actually attracted me, and I decided that I will join this student organization, Sangharsh Vaini, which I joined, and I traveled with Jai Prakash Narayan across India in the villages. I always think that it was such an opportunity for me that at the age of 22, I had traveled the whole India with him, and I have traveled in the villages of India. And that actually motivated me to work in the villages of India. And when I came in Satara district, and where we were working with the wage laborers in Satara district, I met my husband, who was also part of this organization, my husband Vijay Sinha, and fell in love, decided to marry him, and left Mumbai and came to Maswad, small village in Satara district in 1986. You can imagine the attraction of the youth during that time for working in the villages, that I left Mumbai and shifted to this small place in Maswad village, where there was no running water, no electricity, and no infrastructure. While I was staying there, I met a woman, Kantabai, who was a street vendor and doing the business of blacksmith. She said, I want to open a saving account. And I was like, you are a street vendor, you are doing business on the street. Do you have a money to save? But Kantabai was insistent. And she said that, I'm staying on the street with my family and I want a shelter because my family is in open during summer and monsoon. We are always affected. And so I want to buy a tarpaulin sheet. And to buy that, I want to save money. I felt she's not asking for any grant or any support from the government, or neither she's asking for any credit. So then why banks would not deny to open her account? I went with Kantabai to the banks, but banks said that she's not an affordable client. And I felt that it is her fundamental right to get an opportunity to open the account and have her hard-earned money at safe and secure place. So I decided, why not start a bank like women like Kantabai? And so we applied for the banking license. When I say women like Kantabai, what I mean is that, women, those who are street vendors, wage laborers, small micro entrepreneurs, all the farmer women whose cash flows are very tiny, but they also need to save. They also have a need of credit. So then we applied for the banking license. And there was a window at Reserve Bank of India to get the license as a cooperative bank. So when we applied, all our members were, very low income group women, and they were not educated also. On that ground, actually, the Reserve Bank of India denied the license, saying that we cannot issue a license to the bank whose promoting members are non-literate. I was nervous. I came back from Mumbai to village Maswad, and I told women that we couldn't get the license because all our women are not educated. You know what our women said? They said that we couldn't get the license because we are not educated. Women said that. Why are you crying? We will learn to read and write from today. And our literacy classes started from that very day in so many villages. I was surprised to see the commitment and persistent what our women had. After working whole day, they would cook the food, feed the family, feed the animals, and then come to learn to read and write. And then we applied for the license again after 5 months. And at that time, I didn't go alone to the Reserve Bank of India. With me, 15 women accompanied to the RBI. And you know what they said to officer? They said that we cannot read and write, but we can count. And they challenged the officer saying that ask us to calculate the interest of any principal amount. If we fail, don't issue the license. But tell your officers to do it without calculator and see who can calculate faster. Our meeting went on with the Reserve Bank officer for 2 hours, and needless to say that we got the banking license. The first rural women's bank, which was managed and operated by and for women. Today, after 2.5 decades, I'm so proud to share with you, Chandani, that our women, we have been able to impact 650,000 women with the Mandeshi Mahila Cooperative Bank. And with that, we also have a foundation, Mandeshi Foundation, which runs the Business School for Rural Women, Chamber of Commerce for Micro Entrepreneurs, and the radio, which is operated by local women. You'll be surprised if you come here and visit our radio, you will see that women who have never been to the school, but they are radio jockeys here. So this is like, my background and history, and every day, for last 25 years, I'm seeing I learn something new from these women who have never gotten learning opportunity to go to school. But their wisdom, their maturity, their long-term vision have always taught me many things. So I'm glad to share those stories and wisdom which I have learned from these women.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. I think that, your organization is doing such a wonderful work, and it's such a privilege to be able to tell those stories and share it with so many more people today. And, I think what you've highlighted through your narrative is that some of these issues that the COVID pandemic has brought out have already existed long before the pandemic actually began. So, when the pandemic did set in, what were some of the challenges that your organization faced and some of the women faced as well? Could you just highlight maybe some of the key issues that you all had to grapple with?
Sure, Chandani. So when the pandemic started, or I would say people were talking about COVID, people thought that yes, we will have to maintain the social distancing, you have to wear the mask, you have to use the sanitizer or wash your hands regularly. And so we thought, the best way for Mandeshi was that, we are in a remote area, social distancing is totally new concept. How do we explain this? And so one benefit with Mandeshi was that we had radio. So the first thing we decided was that, start a regular program on the radio. And not only just that, but requested all the Gram Panchayats and we set up the speakers on the Gram Panchayat offices so that, on the bus stand, so that people can listen the radio. Even if they don't have, say, a radio on, but if they are standing on the bus stop or they are in the public place in the Gram Panchayats, they can listen the radio and they can listen about this whole thing of wearing masks, social distancing, and continuously sanitizing either by soap or sanitizer. Particularly sanitizer was not that available in the beginning days, right? So we were doing that. We didn't realize that, lockdown will come so suddenly. On 28th March, there was a lockdown. Now we are working in 3 states with low income group women, and so many our women entrepreneurs were like, when the lockdown came in, they were ready. Some of the women were in the catering business. They had to throw all their food which they had made. So one of our women, Savita Paunikar, every year she used to get the order of uniforms from the school, and she had bought the material to produce more than 1,000 uniforms for her school. She was providing the uniforms regularly, and school called her and said that we cannot give you business this year. Schools are not going to reopen. And so she had no idea what to do. Savita said that I had enough of cloth on my table, but I didn't have a food to eat in the evening. And so what she decided that, okay, because masks were not available at that time. So why don't I make mask of this cloth and then sell it? And next day morning, she stood on the road at 10 o'clock and started selling the mask. The first buyer of the Savita's mask were policemen, because they had to stand on the road to maintain the lockdown. And masks were not available in the market. And within one day, she sold 700 masks. And she immediately switched her business from uniform and textile to making masks. And she was so smart that even we run a business school. We had trained Savita for this whole tailoring and, how to use the machinery. Our business school does this program. But Savita set up the WhatsApp group, and she trained 15 master trainers on the WhatsApp how to make the mask. And not only that, she requested Mandeshi Bank that if you give me loan to buy a big machine, I can cut the pieces in the shape of mask, give it to women, they will stitch it and give it. And in that, I'm talking about March 1920. And now I'm so proud, Chandani, that it started like this in the pandemic. But now we have sold more than 27 lakhs masks. There is no manufacturing unit. There is no big infrastructure. But 700 women, daily they are producing more than 500 masks. And everything is virtual. They get the design virtual. They just have to collect the cutted cloth, and then by evening they have to give the mask. And our unit is now, we have a big partners like Cipla and HSBC. HSBC supported us. Cipla was a knowledge partner, and we have started a huge unit. And most of the industry in Pune, in Satara, they are buying masks from us.
That is simply amazing. I think this story really drives home the point that women entrepreneurs are incredible in their ability to pivot, in their ability to understand business strategy and ensure they're meeting demand. I recall during the first lockdown, there was a shortage of masks. All across the country, it was so difficult to get your hand on a mask, and these women entrepreneurs were filling a very critical supply gap. And I think that we really need to acknowledge their contributions throughout this pandemic. And that's exactly what this story does. You actually pointed out a very important part of women's experiences during this lockdown, which is the use of virtual technologies like WhatsApp and other mediums, other digital mediums, in order to conduct business, in order to just live their daily lives as everyone switched to work from home methods, as schools went online and things like that. So I just wanted to know, especially because Mandeshi offers skill training courses as part of their business school, how did the pandemic affect these courses, and what were some of the solutions that y'all introduced to tackle these challenges? I do know that digital literacy among women is disproportionate in comparison to men. There is a pre-existing gender digital divide that only widened during the pandemic. So I would just like to understand what Mandeshi's experiences were during COVID-19.
Sure, Chandani. There was like after lockdown and the initial days, there was so much of nervousness, fear. How are we going to manage all that with us? Huh? And it was very interesting that because women, they were like men lost the job, right? And so, and many of them actually families migrated. Satara is the district where the migration to Mumbai is a huge. And in our taluka itself, I mean, where Mandeshi is, in Satara, we have a population of more than 500,000. And out of that, so many people who had migrated to Mumbai came back. When they came back, they didn't come back with the family, right? They came back with COVID also. So with that, and when the situation was such that we were thinking that now everything is closed. Our bank was open though, because it came under the essential services and people needed money for the medical treatment. So we had our ATMs on, and we had to make sure small things like people don't need 500 and 2,000 rupees, but they need 150 rupees. So be careful that while feeding the notes in the ATM, we have small notes, right? These are the small things when you are around the local communities and rural communities and marginalized communities, you learn from them. Then actually we saw that the many women, how would they come to business school? They are not going to come. What we did immediately is that we shifted to the virtual platform. We immediately, all our trainers, they learned how to manage all these Zoom calls or WebEx, Google Meet, everything. Because there was every woman also wanted to start the business because their husband had lost it. So how do we manage? So our whole business school trainers, actually they had to learn. Then second, they got our women to come on the call. Now the second thing was that how will they come if they do not have a smartphone? So then we said that, okay, why don't we design a product at the bank if women can take the loan for the smartphone? And they did it because it was important for them for online education for their children. You go to any family, the child, or either it is student, is girl or boy, they don't get the cell phone of their father, right? So then mother will make sure that how they can get the cell phone. And so many women actually took the loan to buy a cell phone, which they can use for their children's education and for their own businesses. Let me again share with you a story of one of our Rajani Patil from Latur area. She had a business of spice. But during pandemic, she found out that immunity booster, selling haldi, dalchini powder will help. And she said that I need a perfect recipe. The special courses were organized by our business school for that, virtual courses. How can you make it? And with that, so many women actually switched their businesses. And we created the WhatsApp group of women, those who are in spices, a WhatsApp group of those women. And then also our staff went to the societies, residential societies, because they also had their WhatsApp group. And our women got the training how to have a business WhatsApp, how to use the Instagram for your business, how to click the photo, how to show your product. So our whole courses actually turned into how can you make your business virtually visible, number one, right? If your business is virtually visible, then you talk about the e-commerce marketing. Mandeshi started mandeshiebazar.com, where women can display their product. So last Diwali, we launched that. And we were just surprised the way women got the not only order, but we saw that we then faced the challenge of logistics. Because women got the orders, right? You have a ebazar.com, they will get the orders, but then to package it, to send it. So we got the partners also. Our partners who are supporters, Accenture, MasterCard, HSBC, Dow. These people came with their knowledge, and so many women were trained that what type of packaging is required if you are going to dispatch and ship the your product, or use the courier service of the product. It has to be packed in such a way that your packages should not tore out, or so
Mm-hmm.
all those trainings. So the trainings which before we were giving on site, now the subject was changed because you are going to dispatch and send it. You are yourself not going to take it, and then you are not going to meet directly the client. So you will have to show the pictures. You will have to create the attractive pictures, brand, all those things. So the whole business school training pattern was changed. It was virtual. The clients had to come on ebazaar.com. The producers came on e-commerce platform displaying their products. And at the same time, how another most important thing was to train our women that how they can get the payment, right? Which means that how do you use these digital payment, which also means that you train them to do the financial transaction. While we were doing this training, some of our women said that we don't have a digital money. Unless we get money in our account, then only we will be able to do digital training, right? Digital transaction. It was a learning. I always feel that, we are so, those who are in a formal sector, or those who are, like, I would say, like, quote unquote educated in these universities, they lose the context of the surroundings, that people
Right.
around us, if they do not have a digital money, what is the point of talking about digital financial literacy? First you have to literate yourself, right? That what is the situation of my community. So then we decided that how they can actually get the digital money, and we started doing understanding what are the different businesses they are doing and what would be the solution. I give you the example of Rajni Patil selling the immunity booster. Now let me give you the example of Manisha Jimal, who is rearing buffaloes. Her business is milk vending. How would she do the business that she get the digital money? It's like going and selling milk from door to door. Now, what we told Manisha that, people are going to give you in cash. You send them the digital bill. And once you send them digital bill, they will pay you digitally. But then how would she send the digital bill? So then another training program we designed was that of digital financial literacy and accounting literacy. And with that accounting, we customized a special app, Mera Bill, for our women, where the app is downloaded by women from the store. And then with that app, not only they maintain the account, but they send the bills, they send their how much amount is supposed to be credited to the client. And when Manisha Jimal sent her milk bill to her client was so proud. You know what her client said? कि मेरे घर में जो महिला दूध दूध बेचने आती है वो मुझे डिजिटल बिल बेचती है. She's sending me digitally bill, and he was so proud and he paid her digitally. So this is one story. But with that, I just want to tell you, Chandni, that now more than 23,000 women have been doing this. They've downloaded these apps and doing these digital transactions. So our business school, Mandeshi Udyogini, has become a digital business school, or I would say, like, all our courses are digital financial literacy, digital textile courses, everything. Even our mask unit has been converted into, now we are not only doing mask, we are producing PP kits, we are producing the, in factory, the special dresses are required. And there are a lot of other products like toys for the pets, these textile toys which are made by the waste. And I mean, that whole production unit has been with the machineries. And not only that, but we have at business school, now we have like classified the sector wise businesses, and also we provide zero interest loan to women to buy the machinery. See, the most important thing in pandemic, what happened was that these women who were doing household business, They have been able to scale their business from their house only. But with the machineries, what they were producing in hundreds, now they are producing in thousands and 100,000. And foundation is talking about, all these products in millions.
That is a story of resilience more than anything. I think one of the really key solutions that you've introduced during that point was zero interest loans. And I know that Mandeshi has very innovative financial tools in addition to that. So, I think my question would be, there are several challenges that face women entrepreneurs, and one of that is access to capital. So I just wanted to know, in addition to this, are there any other challenges that these micro entrepreneurs have shared with you? And what are some of the ways that Mandeshi has tackled those challenges by introducing these innovative financial tools, like your zero interest loan, like your smartphone plan? These are all very critical ways in order to encourage women, I believe, to become entrepreneurs.
We had designed, and when I said that zero interest, why did I say that? Well, let me first explain that. During pandemic, our economy came down to down zero. Now you have to start everything from the scratch. And at that time, if we say that, we will provide you loan, but you have to pay this much of interest and all, they will not even start. But if you say that, okay, you are producing mask, we will give you machine, this is the amount of the machine which you will have to repay, which is at a 0% interest rate, and you have a digital facility, and somebody will come and train you digitally to repay, how you can do the digital repayment. Unless you create that whole ecosystem, she is not going to be successful. And if she is not successful, we generally end up blaming the supply side. That is always the habit of demand side. When I say demand side, as a banker, we keep on saying people don't understand, they don't know anything. But in fact, we don't know what is the reality, and we actually lack the understanding of our clients. We don't listen to them unless we create these ecosystem of digital platform, how they will make the repayment. So make sure they have a smartphone. Third is connectivity is the big issue. Okay, explain them that be in the area when you are doing the digital transaction, in the area where there is a connectivity, so that the trust factor will remain with your client. Because our client is not going to pay unless there is a proof. Trust does not come. Trust comes with the action, right? So all these things has to be taken in mind when you try to address these issues. And it's same for all. It's not like only NGOs or a cooperative or these Mandeshi Bank had to face that. Every bankers must have been facing that. And I always see that it is always easy to say that people are not being able to do that, but somewhere how much have we tried ourselves to see. And it was a very big learning for Mandeshi. What were the learnings? Number one, make sure that our women are able to do the digital transaction. So they will have a smartphone. Their smartphone is linked with the Aadhaar. Their phone number is linked with the bank account. Make sure that your bank team is very cautious about it and they don't do any mistake. Because if they fail once, they will not try again. So all these things are very, very important. Make sure that SMS goes immediately. Now, women are very smart. Let me tell you here that when we were designing financial product, 0% interest rate loan, go immediate emergency gold loan, because if they need a bigger amount to pay the hospital bills, particularly during pandemic, so many people, whole families were affected, right? And then there was a huge bill. So many families would come, whatever gold I have, but I need in the second minute a loan. I don't have a time for guarantor or anything. And if I need 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, we made sure that, even in the evenings, our table at Mandeshi Bank of Gold Loan is open for them so that they can get it. That is second. Third, all our ATMs were always 24 hours. We made sure are on so that even during lockdown they can go it. Fifth, you have to, when you talk about digitalization, the first thing comes is that you have to invest in those platforms, right? So Mandeshi Bank during pandemic also decided to invest in those platforms because there is a huge investment. I need core banking solution. I need my data to be protected. I need cloud to have a data, keep my data. I need to invest in switch to get the ATM. I need to invest and get the to be on UPI platform. You have to like connect your software and the cloud and the UPI platform, and everything is digital, right? So there is lot of investment is required, which Mandeshi did it in beginning only. And so I'm so proud that all this was clearly sorted, and then we could launch the lending product also, where women will get immediately 5,000 rupees loan at her doorstep if she wants to start a business, and if she pays digitally at that doorstep, our field officers would go fill up their forms, give them 5,000 immediately, transfer their account into their digital wallet, so that even in the lockdown, without going to any shop, they can buy their wholesale material and they can produce or start their businesses or scale their businesses. And all this was done in a very short period. But what I'm trying to explain, Chandani, is that when you have to resolve the issue of access to capital, that too in the digitalized form, you have to invest in those areas. Once you invest, be ready, be perfect, and deliver to women. They are actually the most hardworking people. And I'm so proud to share with you that since pandemic, nearly more than 17,000 women have been trained in digital financial literacy, not only, but they are doing digital financial transaction. And the head of the digital financial program, Rupali Shinde, have been awarded by BRICS Bank this year. And this award was launched by China, who is a giant in technology, right? They awarded Rupali Shinde virtually from Beijing for giving this whole digital knowledge to the village women in India.
That is brilliant. Congratulations to her. That is amazing. And thank you for sharing that story with us as well. I think I have two questions. One, based on what you just said, one is knowledge sharing seems to be a very big part of how Mandeshi conducts all of the initiatives that you all have launched. So, could you please speak a little bit more about why knowledge sharing is so critical, how these partners that you have collaborated with have played a role, especially when it comes to affecting at the grassroots level some of these women micro entrepreneurs?
Chandani, this is very important question. And I always feel that, those we are in developmental sector, we always try to criticize the mainstream sector. We always try to criticize the corporate world that, they don't think about the last mile. But we shy away with scaling up. We always glamorize our localization. And I always feel that development sector also has to think on that. And when I'm saying that, the first thing I also want to say that actually development sector has so much of talent, and they have an expertise of grassroots, right? As you mentioned that at a grassroots level. Who is expert in grassroots today? All the non-profit organizations who are working, they know the pulse of the grassroots. And when they know, and that was the reason that in second wave, who actually delivered? India was not able to breathe. There was no oxygen available. Why? It wasn't that oxygen was not there. Oxygen was there. But we did not have enough cryogenic tankers. We didn't have the oxygen concentrators. And we failed in delivering the oxygen at the bed of the patient. And who could do that? it was in the second wave we clearly saw that all the NGOs organized themselves so well, and from providing the meals to the migrant, to providing the oxygen to the patient, and to see that ventilators are there for the serious patient. And last, I come to the vaccination, which Mandeshi also did, that provided the vaccination to patient free. Now, in this whole chain, all these things which I narrated now, who was the one common dot in that? And that was of the developmental, or I would say social sector, or I would say that charity or a non-profit organization. They were common everywhere. Why they were common? Because they knew the pulse of the last mile population. They knew the situation at the grassroots, and they could perform that way. And they were collaborating at every level, right? Collaborating with the corporate world, collaborating with the government, and trying to see that how to reach the patient in time. Now, when we were doing that, what we saw was that we have an expertise of last mile, but the corporate have a other talent. Why can't we collaborate? And the government has the scale of reaching the last mile. If we collaborate together and take the leadership, we can say that. And I do feel that we have to come, instead of criticizing, or instead of saying that no, these are the not solutions which corporate are providing, go with them, work with them. And with that, I would like to share that Mandeshi is running 2 COVID hospitals in Satara, where they have been delivering the best. And not only that, because of that, the market actually changed. The price of private hospital came down. So I do think that knowledge sharing is not only just, that we know more or about it, but whatever we deliver at a last mile becomes exemplar, right? I think that is very important, that whatever we will be the best. And if that mindset you want to have, you need to collaborate and do knowledge sharing. And that is the lesson I have learned from our women while setting up the bank, that never give poor solutions to poor people. Never say that our people will not be able to afford that and we won't be able to do that. They will be able to afford. It's not a fancy things people want. What people want is decent, efficient, exemplar thing. And that can be made with the knowledge sharing and collaboration in a sustainable way. So I always say that it is so important to do the knowledge sharing with the corporate and the government, and then only we will be able to give the smart solutions to poor people, not poor solutions to poor people. So just to get out of that whole mindset of providing below dignity, I mean, you just have to consider a last mile population as your client, not as your beneficiary. Or in fact, I would go 2 steps ahead and say that actually they will be the people who are going to give us the wisdom of climate change. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to address that issue, which is again, with pandemic, we saw that is also that whole challenging thing is ahead, which we have to face.
Definitely. I think that's a very important point that you highlighted, Chetna ma'am. I think that really those working at the grassroots, particularly the women, from the health sector like Anganwadi workers and Asha workers to the micro entrepreneurs who were able to pivot their businesses, they were really the backbone of ensuring that our communities were safe, our communities were resilient. And I think on the note of resilience, something that you mentioned was ensuring that we invest in these ecosystems, in these institutions, before the crisis actually hits us. And that's something that Mandeshi has exemplified through all of the investment that the bank has put into the micro entrepreneurs that they work with. So, there is so much talk now about the third wave, how it's going to affect us, is it going to affect us? And as a concluding note, I would just like to ask, as we move forward and we have visions of a third wave and, perhaps a lot of trauma from how we dealt with the second wave, as you mentioned, what are some ways that you believe that we should be moving forward, tackling some of these important problems, investing in the communities and ecosystems that we should be investing in order to build back better, in order to build more resilient institutions that ensure that those who are most marginalized don't suffer, ensure that those who have this knowledge that we've just discussed at the grassroots level are leading our causes, and we are, again, just building back better.
Sure, Chandani. So, one thing, let me give you another example that since after second wave, so many villages, so many COVID centers, we started getting the patient and women particularly, and then with women, children also, we got some positive, right? Got affected. They got COVID, of course, asymptomatic, but we saw children at the COVID center. Now that was very scary. That third wave can be a wave of children getting the COVID affected. And if it is asymptomatic, that's fine. But what if there is some symptoms, or how are we going to handle? We were struggling with that. And we were thinking, what should we do? Should we have special ICU for the pediatrics? And we also worked out that way, that we may need to do that. And we were thinking, but in that, some of the SHG group women came to us and they said, but why can't we are not getting vaccine? Why can't we do that? That because, and this is, I'm talking in month of June or July, when so many women came to us and they said that we are not getting vaccine at the government center at that time. And if we are vaccinated, then we will be able to protect our children, or the intensity of COVID will be less. And we felt that women were right, that vaccination has to be there. And so then we decided that at Mandeshi, we will do free vaccination of at least 25,000 women. And we declared that. And we procured the vaccine and started doing a vaccination drive. Our last 2 months, from July to August full, and half September, what we did was that we were just giving vaccination and completed 25,000 vaccination to our women. Now, when we were doing that, we saw the smartness from the women's side, that, in each village, women will come collectively. They said their gram panchayats that every young women or old women will be vaccinated in our village. You make sure that we can go to Mandeshi's vaccination center by bus. We will go get ourselves vaccine, and we will make sure that COVID is packed off from the village. Now, this wisdom, that was with women. So what I'm trying to say is that in third wave, it's like now you have to stay with COVID, right? And these things are going to continue. How do you make yourself healthy? How do you make yourself? I mean, women were sure. They said, when we are coming forward to take vaccine, it is, of course, we are thinking of our safety, but we are thinking of safety of our family and our village also. And so they made sure that every woman is vaccinated in the village, which clearly indicated that pandemic and climate change is actually telling us one thing, that you have to coexist. I will not just think of my existence and my survival. I have to think of existence of my other person also. Unless I create the situation of coexistence, my survival will be in danger. And I think in this, the last mile communities are the best, because they are not coming from the culture of I just think of myself and I don't care for other, right? They always have a mindset of community, caring, compassion. All these things are still there in communities or a last mile population. And I was very much surprised with the smartness of our women. And I said, see, these are the women who are not only just caring about themselves, but they are caring about the community. So if you want to stop the third wave, yes, the one is the vaccination. And the second thing, which we learned from the pandemic, the societies which are caring for others, they were affected least with the pandemic.
Right.
But the societies who have a habit of staying in solos, myself and my family, they were affected the most. And I think now the time has come that, we have learned a lot about our own development through our education system, through our universities. But now the time has come that we get the community wisdom also, put that community wisdom in the center, keep that, have those ideologies of caring and compassion at the center. And we have to collaborate, coexist, and coexistence is the important. Other person's survival will make sure that I survive. I cannot survive alone. So I think with this third wave, we have now learned that all of us together, if we want to pact off COVID, or if we want to be healthy enough to face the COVID, it's important that we coexist, we collaborate, and we care. Then only we will be able to address.
Exactly. I think that is such an empowering, lovely note to end on. In this age of rugged individualism, ensuring that the community is at the heart of what we do. And oftentimes, the women that Mandeshi works with are at the forefront of ensuring this community care. I think that's a lesson that we all need to take back and move forward with as the third wave, is impending. Thank you so much for your time, Chetna ma'am. Is there anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
Thanks. I enjoyed giving the interview.
With that, we come to the end of this episode. If you want to learn more about Chetna ma'am's work, about Mandeshi Foundation as well as Mandeshi Bank, you can log on to mandeshibank.com. That is MANNDESHIBANK.com. Or you can log on to mandeshifoundation.org. That is MANNDESHI foundation.org. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, please do share it with others and subscribe to never miss an episode. Thank you.